Madam President, I've come to the floor to speak about an opportunity to expand access to capital for small businesses by lifting what is an arbitrary limit on credit unions' ability to serve small businesses. I've done this on a number of occasions over the last couple of years, so the President knows that this is a cause that's important to me. But it's important to me because there's a phenomenon in our country where small businesses are starving for credit, yet the federal government is still standing in their way. And I'm talking about the smallest of small local businesses. These are the men and women who need $50, $100, or maybe even $200,000 to move from their garage to a retail storefront, to renovate their sales floor, or to upgrade their equipment and expand. They're often too small to be worth a bank's time, or they just don't fit the lending guidelines of the bank's corporate headquarters. But these small business owners know credit unions in their community that have money to lend, and these credit unions truly want to help. They probably see each other at Little League games, at church, they play cards together, they socialize. But instead of being able to offer these bridge loans that the small business needs, the credit unions end up saying, sorry, we really want to help you, but the federal government has set a limit on how many businesses we can loan funds to. Now, we're moving to the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act, or the JOBS Act, if you follow the acronym, that the House passed last week. That bill is aimed at increasing the availability of credit to startup companies by expediting and easing the process of undergoing an IPO, an initial public offering. I think that's a noble goal, especially as our economy still struggles to create jobs. But the problem is we're still leaving the little guys behind, the people in each and every one of our neighborhoods that want to expand their businesses and hire people as soon as possible. And unfortunately, the JOBS Act is aimed at companies with revenue under $1 billion. Let me repeat, billion with a B. These companies may well need help with IPOs, but I'm talking about offering relief to traditional Main Street businesses. So in light of this, I'm still committed to allowing credit unions to increase the amount of money they can lend to small businesses. So I will once again introduce the bipartisan Small Business Lending Enhancement Act as an amendment which would open up additional credit to small businesses without costing taxpayers a dime. Now, I know the President has many small, wonderful towns in her state, and I want to, where you see many small business owners. I want to talk about a couple of the business owners in my state of Colorado. Stacy Hammond is a Coloradan. She owns the First Street Salon in Thornton. She got turned away by a bank because her loan was too small to be worth the risk. She went to her credit union. They wanted to help her. They helped her. She opened a larger business, and she's created jobs in the process. I'm also talking about people like Lisa Herman of Broomfield, Colorado. She is the co-owner of Happy Cakes Bake Shop in Denver's Highland Square, and she needed a loan to expand and cater more weddings. She was turned away from her bank, but she went to her local credit union, and that credit union was able to provide her with the loan she needed to continue to grow her successful business and hire more Coloradans. Stacy and Lisa don't need a billion-dollar IPO. They need a small bridge loan. We could be making an enormous difference, a huge difference in these local communities with mere pennies on the dollar of what the JOBS Act is focused on. Yet my amendment would be the only single piece of the JOBS Act that would actually help small businesses or directly create jobs. Put simply, credit unions specialize in these small business loans. In fact, the average credit union small business loan is just $219,000. And in contrast, the Federal Reserve have told us that many banks have quit considering loans under $200,000 because they're just not worth their time. Credit unions know these small business owners, and they have money to lend to them. Unfortunately, federal law still limits the amount that small business loans a credit union can extend to 12% of their assets. Nearly 350 credit unions are facing this cap, and over 500 are having to slow down or stop their business lending altogether, I should say. I mean, that's hard to believe. It just seems like such a missed opportunity. In effect, we in government are telling these financial institutions that they cannot help create jobs in their local communities. That's why my amendment would double the amount of money that credit unions can offer small businesses. Now let me turn to my friends in the banking sector. We've heard from banks over the years that they think it's unfair to have to compete with the credit unions. But the fact is, this isn't about banks or credit unions. It's about small business. And these financial institutions, quite frankly, serve very different small business populations. Credit unions serve the smallest of small businesses, who often must resort to relying on credit cards with comparatively high interest rates in order to invest in equipment to grow their businesses. These are business owners who have been turned away or ignored by and large by banks. We're talking about new loans to new and growing small businesses. After over 100 years of lending to small businesses, credit unions today only represent 5 to 6% of all small business loans, I should say, small business loans. Even if increasing the limit on credit union lending were to double their market share, banks would still have 90% of the market to themselves. Now, I've also heard the banks say that this proposal is unproven or somehow an unsound way of increasing small business loans. But the truth is that credit unions have been making small business loans since their inception in the early 1900s. That's, by my math, over 100 years. And it wasn't until 1998 that there were any limits whatsoever on how much they could lend. The credit union's own regulator, the National Credit Union Administration, has endorsed lifting or even eliminating the small business lending cap. The NCUA chairman testified before Congress that, quote, increased business lending is good not only for the credit union, but also for its members and the communities in which the credit union operates, end of quote. I got to say, I'm frustrated because I think why can't we agree on uninhibited small business support, growth, and job creation? Let's not let the squabbles between banks and credit unions keep these jobs from out-of-work Americans. Madam President, I'm going to begin to conclude, and I want to acknowledge we passed earlier today a bipartisan transportation bill. And in the so doing, we voted on everything under the sun, from contraception to privatizing rest stops. So I sure hope we can have an open amendment process and include this important piece, this important amendment, this important legislation that would help small businesses. And after all, if we're going to tell the American people that this bill is about increasing access to capital, we've heard that said over and over again, this is about access to capital, we sure better be willing to start with those small business owners on Main Street. Colorado common sense, New Hampshire common sense could prevail, and we ought at least have a chance to consider this important issue, debate this idea on the floor of the Senate, and I hope include it in the Jobs Act, because access to capital is what's needed right now, and the credit union sector is willing and able to do so. Madam President, thank you for your attention. I yield the floor, and I note the absence of a